Thrilled to be here on behalf of Chairwoman Senator Sally Harrell, myself, and all the members of this committee. There's been a lot of work that has gone into what we're going to present today, which we're going to list off the recommendations, and then we're going to adopt the report. I just want to remind everybody this is not a public hearing today, right? But this will be a great step forward. And before we do anything to talk about that in further detail, we're going to have an opening prayer. So if you bow your heads with me. Lord, we're so thankful for everyone in this room today. We're thankful for those who have our most special needs, their family, their friends, their community, and the caregivers that help and assist each one of those. Lord, during this season of Christmas and Hanukkah, we just ask that you bring your Holy Spirit around everybody, give them the sense of joy, good tidings, and service to one another. And Lord, we ask that as this committee completes this part of its work and has much work in the future, that you would guide us, put a hedge of protection around us, and wish each one of the folks a wonderful holiday season and Happy New Year. For your name we pray. Amen. I know Senator Harrell, our chairwoman, is going to read these recommendations. I want to take a moment and thank her for not just authoring the legislation that created this, but the incredible work she has done throughout this process. So thank you very much. And I do want to just say that in anything, there will be something in here that we're just a little disappointed with. We wish went further. I agree. Never let the perfect be the enemy of the possible, right? Every time we keep moving forward, that's a whole lot better than standing still. So with that in mind, as we go through these, if you didn't get every single thing you wanted, don't be upset about that. Be happy about the 99% we did, as well as this is the beginning of a very long road, not the end. And we're going to continue to do great work, continue to help everyone out through this process. So I'm going to turn it over to our chairwoman, Senator Harrell.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We got a bit of work to do. Also, in terms of what my co-chairman was saying is we don't consider our work done today. We've done a lot of work. We have in front of us a 35-page report, but we are not going to be able to address the whole thing right now. This is the beginning, this is the kickoff of a process of solving these issues, which are deep and complex. So that being said, the list of recommendations that the committee members have put together fall into 4 categories. The first is strategic and long-term planning. The second is waivers and services. The third is workforce. And the fourth is administration. So I'm going to read these recommendations. Some of them have some red marks in it, so stay with me as I'm reading through some edits that came in kind of at the last minute last night. For strategic and long-term planning, the committee is proposing that we create the IDD, Home and Community Service Commission on Reform and Innovation. Within this commission, we would create working subcommittees on issues regarding managed care, workforce wages and incentives, and direct service provider career paths, transportation, housing, employment, system management, innovation and technology processes, service delivery innovations and technology, planning list management and funds utilization/evaluation, and other committees as needed. The commission membership would include, or should include, but not be limited to, families, providers, subject experts, self-advocates, and relevant state staff. This is modeled after a commission that we've seen be at work for the last several years, the Commission on Behavioral Health and Reform and Innovation, which has worked, I think, very, very well. We did have some concerns from Senator Dean Burke, who unfortunately is not able to be with us this morning. he's a doctor and is working, who suggested that we possibly, instead of forming a new commission, create or have this work be done under the already established Governor's Office of Healthcare Strategy and Coordination, or OHSC, because they have been given the power by the legislature to create advisory committees. While this, in my opinion, and we can throw this to the committee some, but in my opinion, while I did read the legislation that created this office last night, and it does make some sense. It seems to fit there, but and they have the power to create advisory committees. What I've seen with the Behavioral Health Commission is the committees are really working committees, not advisory. And I think there's a difference there. Also, there was nothing in the code that allowed for legislative participation, and I feel like our work here in the legislature has created some momentum, particularly in the Senate. We need that momentum to also be created in the House. And so I'm concerned about it being all executive branch and not enough legislative branch. Also, I really feel like I haven't had enough time to study it and to seek feedback from the public on making this change, whereas I have spent a couple weeks talking to people about having it as a commission like the Behavioral Health Commission. We can always build it in a sunset to end the commission either when the issues have been resolved or within a certain amount of time, like the Behavioral Health Commission has a sunset of 5 years. And so we're not creating something that's going to be there forever and never go away. So that being said, I would like to hear from my co-chair and the rest of the committee.
Yeah, and I believe that Senator James, myself, and you have had a little pre-discussion on this, and I think we should keep the original language as it's stated in here, with the utmost respect for Chairman Burke, who I think is very well versed in these areas. I believe that the points that you brought up, we discussed, make more sense to keep it as is. That looks like we had it.
I concur, and you know, I wish it could have gone further too, but I like the recommendations. It's a start. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay. All right, anybody else?
I think you can just read through the rest of them. I don't think you have to make Dean's corrections because they're technical. You can just read.
Yeah, but they're here.
Yeah, no, I think you can just read them as is, though.
Without the red?
You
Or with the red?
read
With the
them.
red, yeah. Okay. All right. So that is it for strategic and long-term planning. Under waivers and services, we are recommending that we fund 2,400 additional waiver slots in the FY 2024 budget. Second recommendation is that the commission, referred to under strategic planning, is to research managed care delivery of services for those with IDD, determining the viability of a managed care approach for funding support and services for this population. We did have some comments from DCH about whether or not we could do a pilot program, and
Sorry.
it's okay. Should we have them comment now about their, because we had originally written in a small pilot program, but DCH has some concerns. So should we have them bring that up right now?
That's fine, yeah.
Okay, okay.
So
Okay.
CMS doesn't really approve pilot programs. They approve system designs or non-system designs, and so our concern was kind of around pilot program. If you're developing a new waiver with slots or services, or if you're implementing the movement of individuals to managed care, you can do that either through a new waiver or you can redesign your current waiver under like an 1115 waiver, or it's probably BC waiver, but they don't really approve pilots, and so we were just concerned kind of about the word pilot. because it puts us in a position where we can't do something that's asked.
Well, and Brian, knowing these are a set of recommendations, and recommendations could have many paths to getting them there.
Right.
I wouldn't necessarily be concerned about that. I mean, I think we need to do more homework and research, and I think that was brought up by several people. Chief amongst them is my good friend Heidi Bohr there. So what it needs is more homework, right?
Right.
And I
Absolutely.
think that's really the justification for where we are.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let me read the next couple of sentences in that recommendation then, and we can decide whether to keep them. If determined viable, the commission would guide and oversee the development of a managed care of managed care for IDD Georgia pilot plan, assuring the inclusion of all stakeholders, including families, providers, and the Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities in crafting the plan. Do we want to keep that language? It does say if determined viable.
Right. And it may be determined or it may not be. That's to be determined, right?
Okay, so we keep that language. Okay. Then we go further on to say, if a pilot is determined viable, such a pilot should consist of no more than 1% of the now in comp home and community-based service census, which would be about 130 to 150 individuals. The participants will be those individuals who are being newly enrolled in long-term services and supports during the pilot implementation year. The pilot participants must represent a proportion of the waiver census, and we had the participation coming equally from across the state. There was a suggestion that we just include some rural and some urban because there was some concerns about. You want to explain it? Network in a small.
Network adequacy, yeah. Yeah, it might be hard depending on where they are for network adequacy, because you have to do viability to ensure that you have enough staff when you do a managed care delivery design.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it would probably be better to say instead of statewide, urban and rural. So some urban and some rural participation. Is that okay?
Yeah, I think we shouldn't get lost in what this is. This is a series of recommendations, and the first part of it is we may find out this is a good or a bad idea to begin with, right? So
Right.
before we get into minutia, not having even done the homework on it, we probably don't even need to get the cart in front of the horse and worry about that part of the details right now. I think in general what we said is we need to research this, right? And if we research it, let's make sure that if there's a pilot, it's only going to be done with folks that are not currently receiving services. I think
And
that's
I did
it.
state that.
I think it's just simple.
Okay. Then I think how
So are you keeping the rural and urban?
I just think you keep it as is. I don't think you need to make a change.
we'll keep it the same.
Right.
Okay.
Because the reality is in order to to impact these things, it's going to have to something that comes down, work has to happen, and in some cases, there may or may not be legislation that corresponds with it. So
Right.
there's work to be done there.
Right. And we have used the language if it's viable all the way through. So,
right.
Okay. Moving on from managed care. Our next recommendation is that we work with the Employment First Georgia Council as created by the 2018 Georgia Employment First Act, as well as the Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Agency to ensure that competitive, integrated employment is the first and preferred option in the provision of publicly funded services for all working-age citizens with disabilities. That was House Bill 831 in 2018. And we would centralize employment first in waivers and services and maximize resources in a way that supports individuals with disabilities and families. The next recommendation under waivers and services is to develop a long-term person and family-centric service evaluation model to ensure home and community-based services are appropriate, meaningful, and easy to access for Georgians with IDD and their families. And finally, for the waivers and services category, utilize the American Recovery Plan Act rate study and future home and community-based waiver rate studies to inform the legislature on rate adjustments to providers. Didn't I turn in new language for that?
I got that.
you responded?
Yes, because
that-
we're going to continue to look at it when OPB to have them continue to do rate studies. But I think this, honestly, because it says future home and community-based waiver rate study, so I think we've already covered that. So this
Yeah,
is.
but I had some good language that I don't think is here.
That language that you provided, that language?
Yeah.
It was for number 9.
Oh,
Yeah, that email that I got later on, that was number 9 that you wanted to replace.
Yes.
So that's where we put in that new language for
Yeah,
you.
Keep going, you're going to find your stuff.
I am.
I think so.
Okay, I see it.
Yeah, in
Okay,
order.
never mind.
Okay.
Okay. We've been back and forth on some things in this. Okay, moving on to the workforce category, which is what I was thinking of. Utilize the American Rescue Plan Act rate study and future home and community-based waiver rate studies to inform the legislature on rate adjustments and providers. That repeated. Sorry about that. And this is the language I was looking for. In order to ensure an adequate workforce of DSPs, utilize public testimony, feedback from consumers and providers, as well as current and future DBHDD rate studies to determine a wage increase in the 2024 budget. Continually evaluate DSP wages to ensure that they are adaptable and competitive and are enough to cover DSP transportation and housing needs as cited in testimony as being obstacles to recruitment and retention. Consider how to provide additional incentives such as health care, retirement benefits, and other innovative recruitment and retention methods in order to reduce turnover. Now, there has been discussion amongst the committee about whether or not we put a dollar amount in this recommendation. I didn't read a dollar amount. The rate study is out. I personally was disappointed in the amount they came up with, which was like $15.18 an hour. We certainly heard testimony that there were organizations that had done enough fundraising and had gone up to that, and it didn't make a difference. And I kind of wonder, but haven't had time to look into the methodology of the rate service to see if the methodology is able to get an accurate number in a period of rapid inflation. So are there committee members who want to discuss whether or not, since these are non-binding recommendations, whether it might be a good message to send to put a higher dollar amount in the recommendation? Are there thoughts?
You know, this is a tough one because I agree. I was disappointed too. I thought it would come in higher. I think, here's my guess, is when they did that study, they were analyzing over the last few years. In the last, year, we've been in the worst inflation in 45 years, right? It's hyperinflation. It's nothing we've ever seen, candidly, most of us, in our lifetimes, or we did when we were very young. Now, what goes up goes down too, and my guess is when the actuaries put that together, they probably think this is going to crest and come back down. I'll be candid with you, I don't think it's going to. That being said, it's a big leap from where we are today. So remember the old, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the possible? We have to take this, and then I think the language that Senator Harrell put in there is the way to continue that. There's no reason why we can't update a wage study in 6 months from now saying, hey, guess what? The inflation didn't go away. And it didn't work, and based on the testimony, we think that $15 ought to be $20, right? So there comes a time where we want to try and do the right thing and make sure we're advancing the ball, but we also know that our end goal is not yet achieved. I hope that makes sense, everybody. I'm disappointed too, but you know what? There's too much other good things happening. This is advancing the ball to walk away disappointed over one out of all the other issues.
Senator Albers, if I can just clarify, Thank you. If I can just clarify, the IDD rate study is out for public comment. They are drafts. Those drafts are, public comment is due back by January 13th. And historically, we have seen edits, changes that have occurred as a result of public comment. And so I do encourage folks to take a look at the draft rate models and to comment. I know some providers that are here today have already done so. Thank you. As a result of that, we take a look at the methodology and some of the other constructs of the rate tables before the final rate model is released.
Ashley, can you help us to make sure we put that on this website, where it is and how they can comment on it? Yes.
Sure, absolutely.
That'd be great. So everybody knows Senate Resolution 770.com that we're going to work to get that up here shortly. So everybody will know where to find it and how to comment and to give their feedback. Thank you.
Thank
Great-
you, Senator
great point.
Albers.
Yeah, that was great. Can I tag on to that as well? All right. No, thank you for raising that, Ashley. I had just written down, it's not final. So that's an excellent point for all of us, is that public comment piece. Yeah, I want to echo, I think the comments that have been said, I mean, we have heard throughout this process. I really don't think anybody disagrees that our DSPs need better compensation. So, in GCDD, we have been consistent on that, the importance of waivers and wages. So, thank you all for the discussion here. I think this is really vital. And yeah, public comment.
Thank you.
All right. Let's continue.
Okay, thank you. Next recommendation.
Can I say one thing?
Yes.
You asked if we should suggest another higher amount, and I don't see any harm in that, since it is something that's going to be looked at. So if we are recommending more, then in my opinion, they may even look at this and increase it. So my vote would be to at least ask for more, even if we're not going to get it. What do you think?
I hear what you're saying, and I know it's heartfelt. I don't want to put us in a position, though, that all of a sudden we're adversarial against the people that are going to help us to get there, right? But I completely agree with what you're saying, Senator. I think we're doing what needs to be done right now in the hopes to continue to push it forward. And I wouldn't want to create any acrimony that sends us the wrong direction.
I see. Well, you probably know I'm always up for the fight.
I know you are. We fought a few of them together.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Anybody else? Okay.
Yes, she wants to.
Yes,
So we're keeping up the exact amount.
correct.
Okay.
Okay, next recommendation. Work with the federal congressional delegation to create a Bureau of Labor Statistics standard occupational classification for DSPs. Next, utilize the commission's subcommittee structure to support and complete the work of the existing DBHDD work group on DSP career paths. Determine the most effective implementation of various credentialing models, recognizing that requiring credentials can exacerbate workforce challenges. Assure adequate funding to employers to enable a pay rate incentive for completion of a credentialing model. And finally, develop and implement a mechanism for paying wages to family caregivers pending federal approval. Because,
It's
Brian, you,
just a checkbox in the way.
Yep.
Yeah, we can do that.
okay. The final category is administration. First is refine the waiver planning list to reflect easily accessible data, which supports objective decision-making and future projections for planning. This data should include categories such as acuity and level of care, current supports, current needs, age, region, and projected date of service needs, like whether you need services immediately or whether you're on there early waiting for graduation. The data must be a format that allows for easy access and sorting and searching by the public. And finally, in order to have the financial tools and data to allow for thoughtful and precise decision-making and planning by both the Georgia General Assembly and DBHDD, quarterly reporting on IDD legislative allocations, spent financial year to date, and plan for use of lapse each quarter should be reported quarterly to the Commission, as well as the House and Senate Appropriation Committee chairs. So just better information about where the money is going and tracking the money from year to year. And those are the recommendations.
With that, Madam Chair, I would move that we adopt the, I'm sorry?
Sorry. For recommendation number 2, I didn't get the clarification on what all the language you wanted to keep in that one.
We're keeping it as is.
As is with,
That's funding the 24
yeah,
additional waiver slots.
additional, okay.
Fund 24 additional waiver slots in the FY 2024 budget. I believe you had some comments about how the appropriations worked. The Senate Budget Office explained this to me like last legislative session, that when we appropriate $20,000 per slot with a $20,000 annualization, that isn't necessarily reflective of every slot that we approve, because sometimes we're approving a comp waiver and sometimes a now waiver, and the comp waivers are much more expensive. So that amount of money, a comp waiver, would use up more than what we've been calling slots. So it's not particularly accurate to have that 20,000 slash in there, because that's not really a good measure of slots. Is that accurate, Brian?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you just put the slots in, that's fine.
Yeah, let's just have the
Otherwise,
slots.
it gets,
Yeah. Basically, the 2,400 is 1/3 of the list. So we're looking at hopefully being able to eliminate the waiting list in a 3-year period. Wouldn't you say that's what we're?
That's our goal.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Jocelyn, do you have any other updates?
Yeah, one more. On number 4, for the second sentence, the participants will be those individuals who are being newly enrolled. Do you want to keep the original language in now and comp waivers, or the proposed language in long-term services and supports?
That was a comment of yours as well.
It's fine just to keep it now and comp that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It targets it to where it's going, so that's fine.
Okay.
Anything
Keep
else?
the original language.
That was it.
Yeah.
Everything else
Okay,
has been
good.
addressed.
In that case, let me say, I move that we adopt the committee report. And by the way, in the report are not just recommendations, it's also all the testimony that we received from all the meetings we held throughout the state. We adopt this report as it has been written and newly amended.
A second.
Okay. Is there discussion?
I think there are a couple of folks on our committee that have participated and given us amazing feedback, but because of their positions in the executive branch, may have to just nod and not give an official vote. And I hope everybody will respect that that's their jobs, and they get paid for, and their job isn't to legislate, that's our job. So hope everybody understands that.
Exactly. We look forward to that. Working on the recommendations.
Perfect.
Okay, so those who vote yay to accept the recommendations as I have read,
Yay?
Yay.
okay.
Yay.
Any nay?
Passes unanimously.
Yes, so we have approved the recommendations as read previously, and this concludes the work of this study committee. Are there any comments anyone would like to make? I know we made comments, pretty extensive comments last time, but if anybody would like to take a few moments.
One final comment. Again, thank you.
Yeah.
I've said this once and I'll say it 1,000,000 times. Nobody in this state has a disability who has had special needs. We do. Because the world would live and see their lives through the lens of somebody like my friend Jacob over there, it'd be a much better place to live. You're inspirational, you're heroes, whether you are a special needs individual, you are a family member, you are a service provider, or you're just an advocate. who really cares, that's awesome. And don't let this Christmas and Hanukkah season and New Year's end without taking a few minutes to smell the roses and know the work that you're doing is meaningful. And we hear you, we love you, and we care for you. So thank you for everything you have done. God bless you.
I would like to.
Okay.
And I,
What's your 7?
number 7. I would just like to thank all of you who have given us comments, participation, and let us see for ourselves too by bringing many of our recipients of waivers, I'll say, including my little grandson is autistic. And this has been an enlightenment for me, even though I thought I knew so much already. So we're not going to stop just because this committee is ending. I'm going to be here for you, and I'm sure the other members will too, to do everything that we can to make even the things that are not on this, the recommendations that didn't make it, those things happen eventually. So I'm Donzella James, 35th District, and I really want to work with all of you. Thank you. And thank you for the committee. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. Anybody else?
Can I just jump on the train and express my gratitude? Yeah, just so grateful for this process. I want to thank all of you all. This is huge for our community, and I know we've said that, but again, especially our chairs, you all have been so hardworking and brought so much attention to this. The legislative staff, my team, Charlie Miller and Dr. Alyssa Lee in particular, our providers, and most of all our advocates. Just really grateful for everyone's effort and look forward to this road ahead.
Thanks.
Great. And I will close by, saying my thank you as well. I started this work over 20 years ago when I was in the House of Representatives, and the Olmstead decision had just been made. So it has been my honor to come back after a 14-year break where I wasn't in politics. I was raising my own children. It's been my honor to come back and work on finishing that work. So thank you, everyone, for your participation, coming and telling your stories. And I would also like to thank our staff, particularly Jocelyn Hill, who has put in a lot of overtime. This, like I said, this is like a 35-page report, and she has been diligently over there typing everything at every meeting, and then going back and reprocessing it and paraphrasing. And that is hard work to capture the essence of what we heard, and you did that in this report. So I thank you for that extra effort.
I think our Senate press office,
Yep.
Allie Farmer, Carradine, all the other people that have helped out through this process has been truly extraordinary. We could not have done it without them. And know that while we sit up here and we get to do some of this, none of this happens without the staff that's doing the yeoman's work here. So
That's right. And the
website.
And the website that Senate Press put together has been a really big help to everyone, I think. Anything else?
Move to adjourn.
So accepted. Thank you.